yours. My name is Alex Abbott, otherwise known as the bearded sales guy. I think for obvious reasons, no? Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I'm joined by
Jordan Abbott, also known as the sales poet. I've still got a good few more years before I can maybe add the bearded sales poet. At the minute, it's maybe the bum fluff sales poet.
There we go. Look, if it's any consolation, I couldn't grow a beard like this until the age of 40.
Okay.
And even then, it took me 10 years to get to this this bush.
So only between 13 and 23 years for me.
Yeah. if the genes are in control of that, then yes.
But I mean, this handsome devil that's just joined. I mean, where's that beard coming from?
I've got no idea.
and the haircut, short back and sides.
Yeah, looking very sharp.
Or skin fade, I should say.
Exactly that.
Looking quite fresh there.
Thank you. Quite fresh.
Yeah. Quite fresh. You're looking better than you did the other day, anyway.
It's a compliment.
Yeah.
Backhanded one, maybe, but
Yeah. I can't stroke your ego too much. Come on.
I know.
Big enough as it is, Jensen. Right, let's get on to today's topic, because I think it was it might have been your idea, Jordan, or it's certainly sort of
the last session
at the end of the last session. So one of a topic that we've been talking about of late has been storytelling, and the last few episodes have been geared towards telling impactful stories, whether they're connecting stories, so building rapport, building kind of relationship early on, or whether they're differentiation stories like success stories, or building consensus and closing deal stories, value stories, or teaching stories. So now we got to the point, and I can't quite recall how we got to this point, but we were talking about the conversation operating system and how that's underpinned by social selling, and how many companies I see miss the opportunity to think about how their existing sales strategy can be translated to social. And two of those things, or two questions I often ask companies or people at companies that I'm training is, okay, what does your territory look like, and what are the accounts that you're focusing on? And we review them. And then the next question is, how well connected are you within those accounts? Because if you're not very well connected in those accounts on LinkedIn, then for the most part, you're invisible to those companies, to those people influencing the purchase decision. And you rely purely on the meeting that you can get through email or by giving them a call. And as we know, that isn't always the most effective or productive way of engaging with people. The other aspect of this is then identifying the strategic network. So who are the people that would, if you had a better relationship with, would influence the amount of pipeline that you could generate from those focus accounts? And those people may not just be external, stakeholders within the businesses you want to do business with. They're likely to be at partners or internal stakeholders that, you're one of many competing for their time to convince them to get you in front of their customer. And so I thought this would be a great topic for us to kind of, peel back the onion layers and dig into in a bit more detail. But yeah, where would you like to start? What's your thoughts with that as I open the discussion with those points?
Yeah, I think just as an initial piece, it might be worth just framing the approach in terms of flipping the funnel. So, as you
Right.
mentioned previously, the funnel would very much be, narrowing down to try and get that one call. Whereas what we're talking about here is leveraging your network, your strategic network, to have more of a multiplicative effect, to increase your reach, to get your more eyes on your profile, on your content, to build more relationships. So it's actually going wider and wider, so that you have more chances, more opportunities to have those conversations with the internal stakeholders, that the customer, to build relationships with those partners, that will increase the likelihood that you do get that call.
Yeah, it's a really important point. And in the absence of any visuals to aid this discussion, it's really flipping the funnel on its head. So you're then amplifying yourself, your personal brand, your personal / professional brand, and really activating your existing network, growing it in the right places by leveraging, your personal brand. And perhaps we can define what personal brand is in a moment. But then also creating content that not only validates that you're a trusted advisor, you're an expert in your field. I think most do, but it's also creating content that projects your authenticity, that you're a genuine person, with values and beliefs that perhaps give you a sense of purpose, that aren't necessarily work related, although usually there's a lot of crossover depending on what those things are, as you seek to then connect with other human beings, other people around those shared values and beliefs, not just the problem that you might solve, in an effort to build relationships, build an affinity, build rapport with your territory in its entirety, with your strategic network in its entirety, so that they're then more willing to engage in that commercial conversation when the time is right.
Yeah.
Really good point.
Nice. I think so. It's something that obviously we explored when we first did our social selling training, sort of activating our network. And I think since you have taken a step further potentially to I think crystallize what a strategic network is. And I think you mentioned a couple of those groups that your strategic network should consist of. But are we able to, I guess, just go into a bit more detail about what those groups are? So we mentioned obviously your territory. You want as many of your ideal stakeholders within your strategic network. We touched on partners there as well. That is a really powerful exercise. If they've already got their foot in the door, they're already sticky within that organization. How can you leverage that pre-existing relationship? Are there any others that we should really consider there?
I think for me that those, as you just listed, are the primary focus. There's, for me, there are at least two other things that come to mind when I think about amplifying one's personal brand into the right places. One is having a list of influencers that are influencers or micro influencers within your industry that you're trying to do business.
Yeah.
Right. as we know, it's important to engage in those social conversations because it's highly likely that your focus account list, your territory, your audience, your strategic network are consuming the content that the influencers create. Therefore, if you're inserting yourself into the conversation with those influencers, then you're it's just another credibility injection, isn't it?
Yeah.
To your personal brand, that your audience see you for the right reasons, engaging in debate perhaps, or dropping smart comments or questions around a topic that they care about.
Yeah.
And then there's a longer list of events and groups and these other digital rooms or spaces that are available to us all on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And do competitors take a place within the strategic network, or reps from competitors?
Not from my perspective, no. I think the strategic network, for me, the definition is a list of people that if you had a stronger relationship with, they will influence the pipeline that is generated and developed within those businesses you want to do business with. So it's a list of people that if you could map them to your focus account list. And I'm conscious that some will have a focused account strategy and others will have a volume-based account strategy. So we can talk about perhaps the differences that a strategic, the different role a strategic network might play depending on those two different sales strategies. But I wouldn't consider, in fact, I wouldn't consider the competition at all, to be honest. I would just kind of be laser focused on my strategy, your strategy, because they'll be eating your dust.
Yeah.
With this perhaps you have a different view. I'm keen to hear why you.
I mean, the only reason I mentioned it was it may be likely that they're targeting businesses that you should be speaking to. Perhaps they've made a comment on a post, or that you missed. That you should then go and engage with. That was the trail of thought that I was going on. But probably it's not strategic network, but they're sort of on the peripheries.
Yeah, of course. I think it would be churlish of you to kind of ignore that. I think for me, curiously, I would want to know who my competition is engaging with.
Yeah.
And it's obviously publicly available if you go onto their LinkedIn profile and look at their activity to see who they're engaging with.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think some salespeople and sales leaders might worry about that. And actually it becomes this thing that consumes you. Oh my God, what's the competition doing? And actually, I think if you have a clearly defined social strategy and you know exactly what you're doing with a sense of purpose, who gives a crap about what the competition is doing? Because, all right, be aware of it, but don't let it distract the execution of your strategy.
Yeah.
I like that point actually, and I'm gonna input. So on that note, kind of having your strategy, obviously getting a lot of inspiration from Jordan from his kind of posting strategy where he would create rhymes or raps or rhythms, whatever you want to call them, songs. Obviously led me to kind of jump on that trend, right, and create some. And I actually found out there's another CMS company that has tried to do that. but they've tried to do it in a way that they've got AI to create the lyrics and AI to actually rap the song. And you know, when you listen to it and you're a bit like, oh, it's a little bit sore to the ears. And you don't have that authenticity, right? It's not that individual who's trying to build their personal brand, be authentic. But yeah, to add, I would also just say it's being consistent with doing all of these individual steps that then kind of all of them add up to become this little engine, right? That once you've got it working, once you have that routine of those activities that you're doing to grow your influence, it then becomes a lot easier. Like, for an example, with myself, I was mad busy last 3-4 weeks with events, traveling. I think I had like 4 events in 2 weeks, and then I was traveling, and I'll hold my hands up. I haven't been posting as much, and actually, I can feel the effect of that. Right, I'm not getting the growth into the accounts or with the people that I would like to. So that's something actually I've got to make a priority to actually think. Actually, I want to have that same growth. I want to be having the same conversations, having the same reach. I want to be able to insert myself into these network conversations. So I know that posting needs to be priority number one, right? Because that's how people almost communicate with me without communicating with me, right? It's how they actually.
You communicate with them, I guess.
Yeah. So for me, that's one thing, right? And I know for myself, I'm always gone.
Well, it's interesting that you think that the posting is priority number one. I think we can debate that because.
Well, the reason I would say the posting and content is priority number one, because whoever I'm going to target, they're going to land on my LinkedIn profile. My LinkedIn profile needs to be, in a way that is attractive.
The same goal is achieved with commenting, though, as well.
Yeah, of course. I was going to say, I think that the posting, if we think about the 2 key elements, the passive social presence and the active social behaviors, I think a lot of people misled to think that posting falls in the active social behaviors. I would argue that it doesn't. I think posting, while it's an activity that you're doing, it falls into that passive social presence because it's window dressing. It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. You should be sharing insights, your thoughts, this content. But what it does is it increases or improves your passive social presence, because, as you said, when someone lands on your profile.
And I was going to say, explain the differences between the two for the audience as well.
Yeah, indeed. So when we think about social selling or walking digital corridors, what we're talking about with the passive social presence, it is how you appear. It is your personal brand. It's, what you stand for, what is your niche, what's your expertise, what's your knowledge in that area. The active social behaviors, that is what I see as the strategic networking piece. It's you going out, engaging with other people. It's creating the conversations. It's building the relationships. It's those real high impact activities. As you said, commenting, treating that comment section as a digital networking space. It's creating the conversations within DMs. It's, the research, the consuming the content, and then trying to activate a relationship off the back of the content that either your prospect has posted or the content that they've engaged with.
So I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's both. I absolutely get what you're saying. That content forms part of your digital footprint that is on you. It's part of your personal brand. Anyone can go and visit that by looking at the all activity section on your profile. But equally, I do think, especially with humanized content,
Yeah.
Like when you're playing golf with Meg, Jord, or,
Yeah.
I was on Tower Bridge with Mum this week. You get more impression. It cuts through the noise. There's a kind of proactive element to it. You publish it, you have no real control, but I think you do have an influence to improve the visibility and the level of engagement from within your network by ensuring that it's authentic and there's a picture of you in it, which people tend to love.
Yeah.
I think that's what the engagement is telling us when we do it.
Yeah. It's a good point. I think to take it a step further, you mentioned about the all activity section. I think one of the perhaps overlooked sections is your featured content, particularly if you're taking a more strategic approach to the outreach. So, and that doesn't necessarily just mean your territory. If you're a focused account, if you're taking a focused account approach, if you have a territory, but it's perhaps if you are taking a volume account approach, perhaps for a couple of weeks you're focusing on a certain industry. If you're doing that, create content that's, and it doesn't need to be fresh content necessarily. If you've got an article, if you've got a post, you could just spin it to be talking to that exact industry. So I'm just trying to think of any titles of articles that I've written. You could just have that title and then go for industry X. Put that in your featured section. When you set a connection, if that person goes to your profile, they're like, oh, this guy's consistently posting content about my industry. He must, it's just those small things that, because people aren't going to go through all of your content, to make it really easy for them to come to the conclusion that you want them to come to, is that you're a person that they should have a relationship with.
Yeah, 100%. Gents, would you add anything to that or share any experiences you have in relation to, this topic, engaging with your focus network, identifying your strategic network?
The only thing I would add, and I've mentioned it earlier, is consistency, right? It's that's one thing that I really did struggle with was being consistent with inserting myself into networking conversations, consistent of commenting. And like Jordan said, it's actually kind of creating those posts. If you're going to do it by industry, I always find if you say you're going to do it, strike while the iron's hot, right? Because otherwise you're going to kind of put it off. You're going to put it off. You're not going to want to do it. 2-3 weeks later, you then haven't done it, right? And you've actually missed out on an opportunity. And I saw a quote that I can't remember the first bit, but the quote was, we shouldn't say, I've forgotten it now. It's something along the lines of, we shouldn't say like, no, I can't. We should say, why not, to every opportunity. Why not? Why wouldn't I do it? Why wouldn't I jump at the opportunity, right? Or why wouldn't I create this piece of content? Because you're not going to miss out if anything arises if you actually do it. Whereas if you don't do it and you put it off, you don't know what could have come from that. Do you know what I mean? So for myself, it's more kind of consistency. If I'm going to do something, do it. Do you know what I mean? And give it your 100% all.
Yeah, good point. Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap things up for today. We're almost at the 25-minute mark. Just to summarize then, and to give our audience some key takeaways, if you haven't identified your focus account territory, I'm sure most of you have, or if you have a volume account territory, a large number of accounts that it's very difficult to cover, create some segmentation, create a smaller list, however many that is, 50, 40, 30, 10 accounts, and spend a few minutes looking at how well connected you are within that organization. And there doesn't have to be a live opportunity present. best multi-threading strategies start way before there's any sniff of an opportunity. And remember that by engaging 6 or more stakeholders within an account, within a live opportunity, you can increase your close rates by 4 times. So it's really important that you spend the time to be visible within those accounts as early as possible. And then the strategic network, if you haven't done it, look at those focus accounts, those accounts that you're focusing your effort on, and list the people that you feel that if you had a stronger relationship with, you would increase your chances of developing pipeline and strengthening pipeline and mitigating the risk this year, this fiscal, whenever your fiscal year runs. And ask, look, are you connected with them? If you're not connected with them, connect with them, or find the person that you are connected to, that you do know very well, that can introduce you. Cool. So I think they're the key takeaways. Next time, shall we cover personal brand development?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah,
I think we should. Because I think that's one topic that is a little bit up in the air. People don't quite know, am I building a personal brand? Am I not? So I think that'd be a great topic to cover.
Perfect. Happy with that, George?
Indeed.
Good stuff. All right, you fine gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next time on Walking Digital Corridors.